Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we are going to let our guest, the legendary Mr. Chuck Dixon, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
Hey, I'm Chuck Dixon.
All right, you want to tell us a little bit about
find out more.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe, long walks on the beach, I don't know, romantic dinners.
Rainy afternoons in Disney movies.
That when you're Chuck Dixon, that's the introduction, and you'll find out more later.
Yeah. Let's leave it all a mystery.
There we go. All right. So the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we first found them. But I'd have to say, if you haven't heard of Chuck Dixon, that's on you. Go back to whatever rock you live under, because we can't help you at this point. Because I think you've done a little bit of everything. I would not be surprised if you've done pretty much every property out there that's the major one.
Pretty close. No X-Men, but yeah, pretty close to everything.
So is that the last thing on your bucket list? You got to write for
the X-Men are not on my bucket list. I didn't like the X-Men when I was a kid.
I like leave this to Claremont.
I bought issue 1, but Lee and Kirby, and I didn't like it.
Oh wow!
I thought they were whiny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got wings and nobody likes me. Oh, come on.
Yeah, that I didn't understand because all the superpowers just sounded cool. I'm like, dude, I'd love any one of those.
Yeah, I mean, like Ben Grimm manages. Why can't you?
Yeah.
No.
I like the one girl that had the invisibility because you just, as a young man, you think about all the ways that might be abused. Or a young girl. I mean, I'm sure they would do funny things too.
Sure.
I had sisters that always wanted to play pranks on me, so I'm like, anything to give me a leg up to get back at them would have been key. All right. So this is the part where we have to ask you the religion question. There are no wrong answers for you because I'm not allowed to kick you off the podcast. Nick said so.
Okay.
All right. So Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Definitely not Firefly. Star Trek original series and Star Wars until the Ewoks show up.
Wow. Okay. No Firefly?
So 4 and 5. Got it.
Not a fan. In fact, when I want to scrub people off my Facebook friends, I talk about Firefly. And I lose a bunch of people.
Yeah, I don't take the bait. I've seen you do that on your Facebook, and I never take the bait because I do like Firefly.
So what I'm hearing, Nick, is
I don't judge. I mean, if you like it, you like it. I didn't like it.
So he wants to take the sky from us, is what he's telling us.
Or right for the sky. I don't know.
So if Firefly said, hey, we want to produce the next big thing, we're going to Firefly 2.0, and we want you to write for it, are you going to turn them down?
No, I'd come in because I'd fix what I didn't like. It's like when they at DC, they made me write a Scooby-Doo story, so I just fixed what I didn't like about Scooby-Doo because I didn't like Scooby-Doo.
What didn't you like about Scooby-Doo?
The mysteries. It was always the guilty party was always the only member of the cast you had never seen before. I mean, it's like, come on, dudes, work out a mystery. Have it actually make some sense. I mean, not just them running around acting scared for however many pages. So that was my big problem with Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
That's a valid point.
That's valid.
Yeah, it was lazy writing.
So when you wrote for them, did you put in and I'd got away for it if it wasn't for you kids?
No, I didn't do any of that. I mean, in fact, I managed to slip in a real ghost. I mean, this is back when they weren't allowed to use real supernatural elements, but I ended up writing a bunch of them because I liked the characters, and my wife kept coming up with plot lines. So what if they did this? What if they did that? Okay. So I think I did like 7 or 8 Scooby-Doo stories after saying I would never write one.
Okay. Well, that works for that. All right. And because we are polytheistic, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Man, I'm a Tolkien guy.
Okay, that's valid.
A to Z. I don't know why anybody even bothered writing fantasy after he got done with Lord of the Rings. So, the final word for
trying.
Well, we did originally we had Lord of the Rings on there, but it became everyone would say Lord of the Rings, so we had to like take him off and put someone else there because otherwise the episode was always
telling you something.
Yes, but I mean it sort of shuts the conversation down.
Yeah,
and if
yeah.
you take him off the list, then
if I had to pick the three, I'd say Narnia, but
yeah. If you take him off the list, people start thinking about all kinds of fantasy properties that are out there, and not just the elephant in the room.
Right. I like the elephant in the room.
There's nothing wrong with that. I like Tolkien too. If I was answering, that would have been my answer. So, all right, sir. Because nobody asked this once you grow up, and it's a damn shame. What's your favorite dinosaur?
I'm gonna go with the mosasaur.
Okay.
The king of the ocean. I wrote my one novel that had dinosaurs in it, and I wrote mosasaurs in it. The more I read about them, the more impressed I was with what badasses that animal was. Okay,
that's not one. Most people go to land animals.
Yeah, but then mosasaur could take down any land dinosaur going. If they got close enough to the water, they were finished.
They are certainly scary. I did a quick Google as we were talking, and it's certainly scary looking.
Yeah,
they show you them in Jurassic World, and the way that they describe it through the entire movie is more teeth. They needed more teeth.
Yeah, mosasaur, is that the one that jumped out of the water at the Shamu type park?
Yeah, I mean those things could throw themselves up on the beach to get something and just drag it back into the water. They're nasty.
Okay.
And they're huge, or were huge. Maybe there's one out there. Maybe they are huge. Maybe there's one out there.
We'll have to ask the cryptozoologist to find one for us. Okay.
They're on task.
That is an acceptable answer. I don't know why I didn't think of that for sure. I like the one that's the giant whale looking thing that jumped out of Jurassic World. I'm not sure what that was though.
That's it. No, that was a mosasaur.
That's a mosasaur.
Yeah, it's like a whale that had a baby with a crocodile.
Yeah,
that is an awesome answer then. Okay, and all right. So, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee with sugar and milk, or some kind of creamer. So I drink tea too, but.
So this is the mosasaur for those of you at home who are watching. Yeah. Holy crap, it's even scarier in this National Park Service rendering than it was in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean, if it had the metabolism of a crocodile, I mean, look out. Forget about it.
Yeah. That thing's nightmare fuel.
Yeah, seriously.
Now I want to write it as a monster.
So when you go to Universal Studios and you go on the Jurassic Park ride, because I'm a dinosaur person, when you go on the Jurassic Park ride, you're going through this aquarium section, and it just looks like an aquarium until you realize that they're all screens. But randomly, you'll be like, "Oh, it's so nice, it's so tranquil," and then the mosasaur smashes the glass, and you see everybody in the boat just because it's hilarious.
That's great.
I love it so much.
That's awesome. This makes me want to watch Meg again.
Oh, with the megalodons, yeah.
Yeah, because
watch number 2 yet?
Yes, I have. Both were amazing. I watched a 4-hour movie marathon. It's excellent. Have you seen that one?
Popcorn.
Yeah, it's a popcorn movie. Do you watch any of those, Chuck?
Yeah. I just watched 2 recently.
Yeah, it's on Netflix right now, so I checked it out.
There was some cool stuff in it. Some stuff that didn't make sense. I like the first one better, but
same.
But it's monsters and people fighting them. I mean, come on, I'll watch it again.
Who wouldn't? All right.
Have you seen a megalodon eat a T-Rex at the beginning? It was kind of one of those moments where you're like, yeah, stay out of the water.
Yeah, that was cool. That definitely was cool.
You see it some in Camp Cretaceous too, which was the animated Jurassic Park series, where in theory, when Jurassic World was happening, they were also doing a trial run on a summer camp there with a bunch of child influencers, and they got left behind when they abandoned the park, and they're just surviving. And they had a whole scene where they had to cross that waterway.
Wow.
And it was like jumping at them. Like these
so
kids.
It's like Lord of the Flies mixed with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, except for they didn't die. Everyone else around them did. The other people that got left. Somehow they managed to survive all Lord of the. Like, you should really check it out. It's pretty good for a kid's flick.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm writing it down right now. You see the pen?
yeah, it's 4 seasons. It's definitely worth it. The ending is pretty cool, where it shows up where, you know, basically they're back in America and suddenly the dinosaurs have gotten free from the island and now they're showing up on the east or west coast, excuse me, like they did in the books.
Oh.
So could you imagine?
Where does that series appear?
I watched it, I think, on Netflix. Let me check.
Did you say it was animated or live action?
It's animated.
CGI animated?
That I don't know. I've never seen it.
I don't know. What do you mean by CGI? I'm not sure.
Oh, is it? Does it look like
Traditional
animated?
animation or computer?
It looks like cartoon animation.
Okay.
It's got 5 seasons, and I'm trying to think where it aired. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
God, I feel old explaining computer animation versus cell animation to someone.
It's just pretty pictures to me, but a lot of the art is lost on me because I'm also colorblind. So I didn't realize how much of a difference it impacted things until, yeah. Hold on, let me keep that up there for you.
I'll have to check that out.
There you go.
There's too much stuff out
CGI.
there. You can't be aware of everything that's out. I simply 4 seasons and I never heard of it.
It's just 5 seasons according to Wiki, but I thought there was 4. But either way, it was good. They were about a half hour each for the episodes. It was scary enough but still kid friendly.
Yeah.
So you didn't lose any of the, oh my God, the dinosaurs are going to kill us. But you also, you know, got it kid friendly, which I watched it with my kids. It's glorious.
Cool.
I am surprised that the first Jurassic Park held up when you go to rewatch it, even now.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Yeah. My only problem with the Jurassic Park movies is they don't shoot any dinosaurs. And when that does happen, it's off screen. It's like, I wanted to see some dinosaurs get shot. Because Jurassic Park 3, which it's probably sacrilege to say this is my favorite Jurassic Park movie because most people's least favorite. Was supposed to end with the Spinosaurus getting strafed by an A-10 warthog, which, boy, I really wanted
glorious.
I know. But Spielberg put the kibosh on that.
Did they say why?
Because he didn't want to see any dinosaurs getting shot. That's why we don't get to see Pete Postlethwaite facing down a T-Rex in the second. Because he didn't want to see any dinosaurs get shot.
What a jerk.
Yes.
We need a military version of Jurassic Park where, like, they go full hog wild, take an AT-4 to T-Rex just to see what would happen.
Well, go to Tubi. I'm sure there's one on there.
Yeah. Read my Bad Time series, time travel series. It's definitely one. Military versus dinosaurs.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and I knew you for your comic book stuff is what I've heard of you for. And Nick's like, dude, he's written books too, and so he was telling me about that. I'm like, I'm totally buying it. And I noticed when I was looking for it that that it was reviewed on Upstream. I write book reviews for them as well, and they reviewed it. And somehow I didn't get the memo that was an option because I'd have picked it.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Cool. Time travel is a passion of mine. I've always loved the idea since The Land Before Time, where they get sucked in, not the dinosaur cartoon, but like where they go through the time rift. Right.
Yeah, I'm forbidden to write any more time travel because my wife says it makes me schizo. So I wrote the 6 books and that's it.
I mean, there's a lot to consider. Yeah. The potential paradoxes, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. But
the only reason
I'm having way too much fun thinking about it.
So the only reason I wouldn't do time travel per se is I am a trained historian, and I know if I go down that rabbit hole, I will get sucked into the research wormhole, and you might not see me for a decade. Yeah. And my kids kind of want to be able to eat and, you know, have me cook them food and stuff. Yep. And the other part of that is the history nerds are so picky. They're like, that was actually a 73 caliber, not a 74 caliber. You have to fix that. The yes, actually crowd.
That's why time travel is so cool, because you can write about history from a contemporary person's perspective, and they don't really know what they're looking at, so they can't describe it in any great detail. So they sort of get you over the nitpickers. But I'm with you because I purposely picked periods of history I didn't know much about, so I had to do the research. I didn't pick things I was real familiar with.
Yeah, I think if you go back far enough, nobody's really familiar, and we're all kind of guessing, like when you go to the prehistoric. But yeah, I also that's one of the reasons I like writing weekend warriors instead of super soldiers, because you get the benefit of the unreliable narrator. Oh, I didn't get it wrong. I knew that, of course, but the character didn't.
Right.
It's a perfect get out of jail free card.
Yeah, the talented amateur. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. So obviously, you have a lot of passions when it comes to speculative fiction, but how did you decide one day that you were going to cross the threshold from just being a fan of the things to, let me see if I can make this a career?
I always wanted to be involved in comics in some way. I mean, as long as I can remember, I was into comics. Even before I could read, I was reading comics because it's a medium you can read without being able to read. So, and it basically learned how to reading comics. And, I used to draw my own and dreamed of being an artist, realized I didn't have the discipline. So I became a writer. You don't need discipline to be a writer. You just have to start writing, and just kept running at the companies, the big two companies over and over and over again. Well, somebody let me in, gave me a break.
What was your the first comic book you remember picking up and reading?
The first one that made an impression on me was it was an issue of Tales of Suspense that my dad brought back in a bundle from the farmer's market, and it had a character, this tentacled creature called Spore was the big monster on the cover. It was a Kirby cover, and it was him like coming over a castle wall to chase these people. And it just seared into my mind, that image. And then when Spider-Man came along, that I was totally hooked on the medium with Spider-Man.
So that character brought a lot of people in.
So if you like the old school, stuff that's like you, and were you a fan of like Alfred Hitchcock's stuff?
I mean the movies or
the TV series, the movies?
Oh yeah, watch the Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, all that. I watched all that stuff. And then, later, Hitchcock was a sort of a byword. Oh, it's a Hitchcock film. It's going to be good. So, but over time, you like them as a viewer, but then over time, I learned more about how they were done and, gained a greater appreciation for what that guy did.
I say it all the time, and some people come back at me, but I still think the original black and white Birds movie, scariest movie I've ever seen.
It is, because it doesn't have any of the fixes. There's nobody there to explain anything, which I really liked. They don't explain why it's happening, and it's all normal people reacting pretty much as normal people would, either totally freaking out or, trying to come up with a series of solutions that don't work.
Well, and more than that, with Birds at least, I think, again, I'm going to get the hate mail. Send it to Stabby. I think some of our modern actors have lost some of their acting ability. They rely too much on green screens and special effects. Back then, they didn't have any of that. So if they wanted you to believe they were scared, they had to act scared. And so I think the dramatic acting back then was just better.
Oh, yeah. And I think you had directors who knew how to deal with actors to get the best performances out of them, even if it meant tormenting them. And Hitchcock certainly tormented. I mean, when you read about these old school directors like Howard Hawks and John Sturges, they just tormented the living hell out of their actors to get what they wanted. It was cruel, but worked.
The work speaks for itself, though.
Yeah. I mean,
that's definitely justified the means.
Yeah, I mean, you take a movie like It's a Wonderful Life, and everybody remembers this happy, joyful Christmas movie. It's not. It's extremely dark. And Frank Capra, the director, took advantage of Jimmy Stewart's post-traumatic stress disorder from being a bomber pilot in World War II, and he used that, to tear the George Bailey character down. Because those scenes where Bailey's losing it, basically having a nervous breakdown in front of us. I mean, I gotta wonder how much of that was acting. So, I mean, that's what they used to do, and I guess they don't do that anymore because agents. You'd have, you start doing that to Ryan Gosling, you're going to have his agent come down on you. So,
yeah, and the courts are, they think people have rights and stuff. It gets real weird. You can't just torture them for a paycheck.
Yeah, but they're actors.
So they're not really human.
Yeah. It's like Max Bialystock says in The Producers, did you ever eat with one?
But yeah, I like some of that old stuff. So do you try to bring any of that stuff you loved as a kid into your modern writing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ignore things like plot and character development. I mean, I sweat dialogue. I read a lot of stuff about screenwriters and directors from the golden age of Hollywood, and mostly about their working process and everything else. And I learn a lot from that. And I mean, the thing I learned from Howard Hawks, classic American director, was a writer has to ask themselves the same question over and over and over again all day long. Is there a better way to say this? And that's been a huge help to me. Is there a better way to say this? Because you've got to be your own harshest critic, even as you're working. Because I mean, we've all written like really stinky lines, and you realize this line stinks. And I got to walk away and think of something better.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how purple you want your prose to be. I think there's something to be said for like the workman-like Tom Clancy style prose where it gets the job done and you let the story speak for itself.
Yeah, but you don't want to make sure, there's always simply a better way to say things. I mean,
absolutely.
Because you're the reader, the viewer, the whatever, they're smart and they've seen it all before. We're all experts in storytelling. We all understand the language of cinema. And if you're a comic aficionado, you understand the language of comics, as well as the people creating it for you. You know when something sucks. So, as a writer, number one, I don't want to bore anybody. And number two, I don't want them rolling their eyes like, oh God, I've heard this line a million times. And it stuns me when I see, writers use lines that it's like, first of all, nobody in the world ever said, not on my watch. And secondly, why would you ever have a character say that?
I did say that when I was chewing out one of the privates that worked for me when in Iraq because he didn't.
See, in that context, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying. Some of the lines that I noticed when other people do, and so now I try not to use. Oh, he let out the breath he didn't know he was holding. Like everyone does that, right?
I'm getting too old for this shit. I mean, come on. There's got to be a better line.
The best line ever for cinema came out of that '70s show, Red Foreman. Fat, dumb, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
That's actually from Animal House.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's where it had come from.
Yeah, that was the dean says that to Stephen First.
I've seen Animal House too, but I just didn't realize. Okay.
Watch it again, JR. You'll have a newfound appreciation for it.
I will say you were right, though, that the audience that's consuming the books, the comics, the movies is a lot more sophisticated than they used to be. Yep. And they'll spot bullshit a lot faster, and then they'll call you on it. And because you've got online, they've got forums to do it, so they can vent louder and more frequently to the heavens. I remember growing up, and you'd see stuff that was wrong about military stuff in movies, and you're like, oh, well, they have to get their uniform wrong so the government doesn't sue them, right? And impersonate them. That was what people said. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Of course they got it wrong. And now I know it. I'm like, myth. That's a myth. That's not true. They're just lazy.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and you gotta. I mean, I've talked to. I don't know how many vets I've talked to from World War II on, because I was just, even as a kid, was just a bug about talking to guys who'd served. And what was it like and what happened? And I want to hear their stories. And, and a lot of times it was just say, take some cliche movie line like incoming. Is that what you said? And it was like, no. The most common responses were effed.
Yeah. Or, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
Your next cover in concealed position.
Nobody's yelling incoming.
Well,
it did happen, but generally they were the booths who were so cherry. Because I remember we were in BIOP, so the Baghdad International Airport. It was a ringed fort, compound. The outer ring was stuff that they didn't really care if it got mortared. It wasn't as important. That included the truck drivers and convoy escorts that were bringing them their supplies after we dropped our loads, of course, because the supplies they cared about, us not so much. Yeah. And so we have our vehicle staged, and we've got like folding cots outside of our trucks that we slept on. And the new guy that had just showed up was like freaking out, incoming. And I remember rolling over and I'm thinking, oh, that's not even close, and going back to sleep. And so you see some of that, but it's always the noobs, right? It's always the guy that just showed up.
That's life imitates art. You know, he's saying that because he saw it in a movie. He's not
or
saying
a comic book or a book.
Yeah.
They trained us that, like, to yell incoming when stuff was coming in.
Yeah, I've never met any vet at Vietnam on who ever said, no, we didn't say that.
The only time I had ever said that was in a training lane, and that's because I was looking for the score from the evaluator, because that was on their sheet. It's like, oh, well, did the NCO in charge relay to his troops that there was incoming and direct fire? Well, I used the language that I knew. And I was just like, well, I'll just say incoming because that's what they want. Right. That's what's on a scratch of paper.
Once again,
I'd be like,
that makes sense.
Well, this is one of those things where the book goes out the window when you make contact. And so even if that's what the book says, I mean, most of the time what comes out is vulgarities that you can't repeat in polite company.
Right. Right.
Usually it's get the F down, find cover. What are you doing so close to me?
Right.
You know?
And I will say, like, I remember, and I've told this story on the podcast, so I won't belabor the point, but we had parked, and I was about, 75 meters or feet, not meters, 75 feet away from the porta potty. I got there, no toilet paper. So I'm going back to my truck to get some. I'm about 25 meters now, or feet. There's a difference. I don't want to crash on the moon. Or no, was it the moon they crashed on when they got that wrong at NASA? Anyway, they didn't convert right. But anyway, so I get about 25 feet away, and a mortar round lands on the porta potty I was just in. And you would think, according to Hollywood, I would have this epic one-liner, and all I could think of was, well, shit, that'd have been a shitty way to go. Nothing crazy. I'm like, and then you move about, right? But like, it's if you believe movies, like, they've always got this perfect one-line quip that someone probably spent too many hours thinking of.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it doesn't. You come up with a one-liner after that traumatic event happened. You know, you're like, oh man, that would have been totally rock star to say that right there. Yeah. But all I said was, oh shit.
Right, like, I still haven't thought of anything that was more appropriate for that one. But if I ever figure it out, I'm rewriting my memoirs, and it's going to go in there. Well, yeah, that's one of those.
To me, the best lines like that are the ones that they're in a context of situation. The character's not trying to be clever, and particularly when the actor throws the line away. I mean, one of my favorites is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Marion turns to Indy and goes, "What do we do next?" And he goes, "I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along." And it's such an honest line. It's not like a clever one-liner. It's not like it was written to be a takeaway line. And the way he delivers it, he just throws it away. He doesn't step on it at all. He just throws it away. And it makes it so much funnier.
And I love that line too, because it really humanizes the character and it brings the audience in, because like no one else is coming up with a better line than that. Because if we were in Indy's shoes, that's exactly, I don't know what I'm doing. Does it look like I know what I'm doing? I'm making this up as I go along.
Right.
And I said that to my soldiers. They're like, sir, what do we do? And I'm like, do I look like I have a plan? Like, my plan ended like 3 clicks ago. Like, I'm making this shit up, trying not to die.
Yeah. Do you think I've been here before?
Some of the best one-liners from the indie stuff was when Harrison Ford was improvising it because he was tired and cranky and he wanted to stop shooting for the day. Like that infamous scene where the guy's waving
dysentery.
Dysentery. Yeah, he's waving the swords around, and he just pulls his pistol and he fires the 7th shot and a 6-shot pistol, and the guy just goes with it and falls down dead.
Yeah,
like that scene has been reenacted in so many other follow-on movies where the guy wants to go full martial arts, and the guy's like, "I got a gun. I ain't doing that."
That's a perfect example of what I said about audiences being smart. The reason that scene works is it's such a surprise. And the other reason it works is because the audience is getting ready for a martial arts fight, a whip versus sword fight.
Right.
By that point in the sequence, we're kind of exhausted, and we're not sure we want to go through with that. well, neither is Harrison Ford. He just shoots the guy. And it's like we laugh, but then we're appreciative because we really didn't need that scene.
Right. It just would have felt.
And he's such a badass, He just guns, and he's, it's an American thing to do. Just gun the guy down.
When in doubt, guns down.
Yeah. I mean, he was doing this stuff in, I think it was we're talking Raiders, so that's 1932, I believe, in the timeline.
Yeah.
And he's still carrying a pistol on his hip like a gunfighter.
Right.
And that made sense with the character, even though it was complete improv and he just wanted to go to the bathroom.
Right.
For him to do that, it just made so much sense with everything that they built up to that point. And yeah, that was an exhausting scene with the whole, the laundry baskets being chased around town. And it's just like, it got wild. That was the perfect way to end it. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think we all feel that way in movies, and a lot of filmmakers don't get it. Is there's only so much we can take with and then you end the movie with this long extended fight that we know the hero's going to win anyway. It's like, can't you come up with something more clever than that? I was in a production meeting once and to do rewrites on a movie, and I said, if we do this, you don't have to end the movie with a big explosion. And they said, well, every action movie ends with a big explosion. And I said, but they don't have to. This is actually a more suspenseful scene than a big explosion. But,
that all those tropes got lambasted very satirically in the Last Action Hero movie.
Yes.
Where they broke the fourth wall so hard. It was awesome, where he literally steps through the screen. If you haven't seen that movie, guys, it's definitely, I know it's an older movie, but it's worth it.
But it's movie. So great.
Yeah. And it's like, with the scene where the cop is now in our world, the first time he gets shot, he's like, it's a flesh wound. Oh shit, this hurts.
There's a movie called High Risk. I don't know if you've ever seen it. James Brolin is in it. A bunch of laid off factory workers decide they're going to use their life savings to go down to South America and rob a drug deal to make money. And all they know about this stuff is what they've seen in movies. So the first time they go to knock out a sentry, they think, we'll just hit him on the back of the head with a pistol. So they do that, and the guy starts screaming. And
that
does
not work.
They keep beating him with a pistol.
Oh, that is awesome. I'll have to check that movie out. That's giving me Three Amigos vibes, but with a modern setting.
Yeah. It's James Brolin, Anthony Quinn is in it, Bruce Davison. It's a fun movie.
Not many movies escape my grasp, but this one did. So
before we dive into the stuff you've actually created, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man. Boo. So if you are listening at home and not watching, Nick is still in the process of doing a voiceover. He's just got to figure out the text. But Apogee Comics, that's Nick's comic company, decided to sponsor this episode. So it was just a picture montage of some of his stuff. With
not a rip off from Marvel.
I mean, did you rip off? Did you just emulate what you liked?
I mean, I can say it in a fancier way. It's an homage to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
There you go.
But no, I ripped it off.
I mean, in the writing business, we call it filing off the serial numbers. It's Star Wars, but not Star Wars. It's Star Trek, but not Star Trek.
It's all in how you phrase it.
Exactly. So, all right. So you mentioned briefly the Bad Time series, which is your time travel stuff. But what all, if you were someone who hasn't read or consumed any of your stuff and they wanted to start somewhere, where would you point them first?
Well, I mean, I've written a whole lot of comic books, like thousands of comic books. I was on Batman for 11 years. I'm considered one of the seminal Punisher writers. I won't go into all the other comics. I've written Conan, SpongeBob SquarePants, I mean, just about everything.
Wow.
But as far as books, I've written, I think, 35 novels.
Oh God, you don't sleep.
No, right.
His wife chains him to the desk and just throws food occasionally. She's like,
Are you in trouble? Blink twice if it's like a misery
No,
situation.
no. I mean, it's you know, when you first get into the writing game, you worry about burnout.
Yeah.
I found out, no, I'm never. You know, it's a compulsion. It's you think you're going to reach a point where you don't want to do it anymore, but it's all I want to do. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't start writing novels till I was like a wilderness period where I wasn't getting a lot of comic work, like not enough comic work to pay the mortgage. So I got in the tail end of the ebook gold rush and started writing my own stuff and publishing my own stuff. But so yeah, I did 35 novels. 12 of them are Levon Cade novels. He scratches my Punisher itch.
Okay.
He's a vigilante justice guy, and in a couple of weeks, a movie based on the first novel in the series starts filming.
Nice.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And yeah, Jason Statham in the lead. Sylvester Stallone did the screenplay. David Ayer directing. So
is that something that
wow.
you've made public already, or is this the first time?
Yeah. It's been out in public. They've all been interviewed about it.
Cool.
So, how did this?
And I know it's going to happen because they hired a craft service and we got the stunt coordinator and the art directors are already building sets. So.
Chuck, it's not official until they invite you to the set.
No, I don't want to go. That's not me. That is not me. You know,
Yeah, craft services, man.
Somebody said, "Are you worried they're going to do it justice?" And I said, "Well, Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay. David Ayer did a rewrite. I have 2 Academy Award-winning screenwriters adapting my book. I think it's okay. I think it's in good hands."
I think if they
David Ayer did Suicide Squad, so he knows action.
He did Fury,
and he did Fury.
He did Sabotage. Have you ever seen Sabotage?
Sabotage is good. That's the one with
that is a really mean movie, which I like because I want my movie to be mean too.
Well, Sabotage was brutal, so if it brings that level to it,
he doesn't back down. I think that's what I think he made the movie meaner. And then as Sly told me, Jason Statham doesn't care; he just wants to fight.
So Nick, if your stuff ever gets made into a movie, I don't care if you want to go or not. We're going because Stabby and I want to go to craft services and see if it's all the hype.
Dude, I've been to craft services once when I was an extra on We Were Soldiers, and it was the extra craft services, not the stars. Wow. And I had an amazing time, and I ate well that day.
Wow!
Hey, actually, one of the guys I deployed with was an extra in We Were Soldiers. The black officer, I can't remember the character's name, that died. He was in my unit because he told me some funny stories about the filming of that one.
Wow.
Because I guess the female that was the wife was the big actor. He was just the nobody supposed to stand there in a pretty army uniform.
Well, how I got in that, it was my first drill with the California National Guard. I had just got out of active duty. And my first drill was like, hey, we're going down to the Bay Area and we're going to audition as extras because you're airborne, you're air assault, you're in the Ranger Battalion, so I think you'd be a shoo-in. We're going to go and audition to be extras in these movies. I'm like, California effing National Guard. All they're going to do is film movies. This is going to be my life. So like, your first impression is a standing one. And my first impression of the Cal Guard was like, so we're just going to be extras for Hollywood movies, for military stuff. But I got to meet Sam Elliott because he liked to slum down with us extras. Cool. And I didn't recognize him without his mustache. And he's like 2 or 3 people down, and I'm finishing up at the end of the line, getting my last scoop or whatever. And he's like, I had to shave my mustache for this shit. You believe that? And I'm like, oh, man, that really sucks. And I look up, and it's Sam Elliott. I'm like, oh, my God. Yeah, that really sucks, bro.
So what was the inspiration for, you said that the Levi stuff was, you wanted to scratch the Punisher itch. What about the bad timing, the time travel one? What made you decide to dive into that maelstrom of crazy?
I just love time travel stories. I mean, I read The Time Machine when I was a kid. I went crazy over it.
Me too.
I went nuts when I saw the movie. And then I just liked everything time travel, especially when it was done right. I got to work with Bob Gale a little bit, and geek out over him because I thought the Back to the Future movies, 3 movies, man, time travel, paradoxes, all the rest of it, never dropped a stitch. There is not a plot hole in any of those 3 movies. It all works all the way to the
It's
end.
been known to be the perfect movie.
It is. It's incredible. I mean, and that kind of right. And he told me about how angry on the first one, how angry the crew got because they got so confused. Because first of all, they're shooting out of order, and secondly, you're like, we already shot this scene. Why do we need to shoot it again? Because it's a different time.
Well, and it was so weird too because they filmed 2 and 3 together at the same time.
Yeah, back to back.
So that had to have been super confusing on any aspect of that film.
Yeah, but they worked it all out. I don't know what kind of diagrams they used or whatever, but they worked it all out. So it's perfect.
That movie, the famous one-liner where they ask him where he learned to shoot, and he says 7-Eleven.
Yeah,
and everyone was so confused. And now I'm like, at the first you're like, oh, he means the arcade that must have been at the local 7-Eleven. Because at first I'm like, did he rob the place? And that was,
there could be some of that too. Mill Valley, California. I would assume there's crime.
That when I figured that out, I started laughing hysterically, and I'm just like, oh, this is good.
Well, see it in the theater in the 80s, and when they ask him what he wants to drink, he says, I'll have a Pepsi free. And the guy says, you're going to pay for it like everybody else. That line busted the whole argument. Hey, people are like, what do you mean?
And then he follows up with, I'll just take a cab. He's like, I can't give you a cab until you order something.
Yeah.
The writing was just perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gail's an amazing writer.
So the Bad series, you said your wife doesn't want you to write any more time travel. Does that mean, I think it's a 6-book arc and it's done, or is there a potential?
Yeah, it kind of I wrap everything up. I don't resolve every issue that they have, but I kind of get the characters back together and wrap, because they get all separated in different time periods and parallel universes and all the rest of it. But but I had to write a 6th book because I wanted to get to the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs are awesome. What's not to love?
Yeah.
Did you get a gunfight with the dinosaurs? Where like shooting at them?
Oh no, yeah. They get in a battle with dinosaurs. I mean, there's a sea battle. It's called Pirates of the Cretaceous. So it gets insane.
So wait, so are they fighting just the dinosaurs, or are there other sentient?
No, there's an overarching villain. I mean, the time travel technology that these guys use, they're all ex-Army Rangers, and they get hired on to be part of this project to rescue a team that went back to prehistoric Nevada and weren't heard from again. That's the first book. And then they stay on with the project because it turns out the brother and sister team who are working this project, they stole it from this guy who was like a multi-billionaire because they didn't like what he was going to use it for. And so then he's the big bad villain who's chasing them around for the next 5 books. And they're basically hiding in time to get away from him. And this guy, his thing is he wants to create a world where there is no major world religion. And so he's having agents go back in time and, kill religious figures. And I think the 3rd book, they go back and keep Jesus from being assassinated. Although we never see Jesus. He's never in the book. It's implied that he's amongst a group of Judeans who are to be executed.
There are a lot of cheesy, good time travel movies that are out there. If you get on some of these movie subsites, you'll find as they run out of stuff, and it got especially noticeable during the Hollywood strike, they were taking all kinds of foreign films and just dubbing over them. Yeah. And so there was one where the guy went back in time and was going to kill Jesus, and they went and stopped him. So you ended up with several copies of people because he kept going back because it didn't work and it didn't work and it didn't work. And it gets funny if you take it to the absurd.
Yeah. I didn't want to get as tacky as actually having Jesus appear in the book. So
yeah, and
he's among a bunch of Judeans who are taken prisoner and who ultimately going to be executed.
I was wrong earlier when I said the land before time is actually the land of the lost. I just did a quick Google.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was I remember watching that as a kid in the early 80s, and I know it came out in like 74, but I watched it at Nick at Night, like they used to do all the reruns, and I just fell in love from there.
Wow.
So what device do you use to get them to travel through time? Is it sort of like a portal gate kind of thing, like Stargate?
Yeah,
Or?
it uses it uses a Tesla tower
Okay.
and tachyons,
Okay.
and it it's like a ramp into they just like tear a hole in time, and they go down this ramp, and it gets very cold. It gets down to 100 degrees below zero on this thing because yeah, I read enough of the BS tech science to make it seem real.
Plausible.
Yeah,
So
plausible.
have you thought about taking any of your actual novels and turning them into comic books or graphic novels?
I would love to do the bad times.
I was thinking that would make a good graphic novel.
Yeah, because it's I'm a comic book writer, so it's all action, plot advancement, action. It's perfect comic book stuff. There's never there's never any long dead spots. I just have to get the right artist who's going to do, because I'm going to be a stickler for the details. But I've got if you see the shells behind me, a lot of this is military visual reference, uniforms, weapons, stuff like that. So I'm willing to help on that stuff. But yeah, I'd like to see it be a movie too. Stallone's been interested in doing it as a movie as well.
Nice.
We need the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Bad Times would be an awesome movie series.
Yeah, I imagine getting the dinosaurs into anything would make it expensive.
Well, that's why the dinosaurs are later. I mean, in the first book, it could be shot, in the Arizona desert, and it's cannibalistic proto-humans.
Okay.
And there's a couple of prehistoric critters there as well, but nothing outrageous. It's 100,000 years ago in Nevada.
Did you actually go boots on ground to Nevada to start looking around at some of the sites for the fun of it?
Just do a lot of reading, and YouTube's a huge help. Let's watch this couple, tour around the Nevada desert. Plus, it's 100,000 years ago. A lot of it would be completely different anyway.
I mean, I'm just thinking of everything you could write off as a tax expense that, like, every vacation you've ever wanted. Business.
I don't want to play with the tax man. Just to do that.
So
I've gotten in trouble before with that stuff. You spend how much on research? I got the receipts.
So what are you working on now, either in comic or novelization, since you've finished the Bad Times and it looks like the Levi stuff?
Yeah, so I just Levon 12 just came out. Book 12 just came out. I have a Western novel I'm like halfway through that I want to get back to, but I keep getting offered comic work. I'm doing a lot of work for Eric July and the Rippaverse.
Okay.
And then currently I'm doing something for Splato Comics for Richard Meyer. I'm going to finish that this week. And then I don't know if you saw a book called Hunter Ninja Bear, but I'm going to start writing a sequel to that. That comic in a couple of weeks. So, I've always got something. I'm always busy.
So your Western, is it like spaghetti Western Style, Louis L'Amour style? Like what's the vibe?
It's it's a combination of like 1970s mean Westerns, like Westerns like Hunting Party and Chado's Land. And then there was a paperback company called Gold Medal that used to do Westerns that were very tough. Louis L'Amour there's not enough testosterone in Louis L'Amour. So
okay, bold statement.
So I've written two Western novels in this series called The Sidewinders, Snakehand and La Gringa, and now I'm working on one called Gallows. And they all take place in a shared Western universe.
Who is it shared with?
They share with each other. The characters will intersect.
Okay. I thought you meant you with another author. Okay, so the novels overlap.
Well, the first one I wrote with an author named John Neal, but the second one, La Gringa, I wrote on my own. And this one I'm writing on my own.
Okay.
I love Westerns.
You've written with a lot of people over the span of your career. Is there anyone you've had the most fun writing with?
Well, Bo Smith, my buddy Bo Smith, is always a blast to write with because we bring out some sort of evil spirit. Whatever we write together is like nastier and more violent than anything we've written alone. I don't know what. I think we're trying to top each other or write each other in the corner or make each other throw up. I don't know what we're trying to do there. And then
I'm not hearing anything not to like.
and I've written a lot with Scott Beatty. We did Robin year 1, Batgirl year 1. And I like working with him because the enthusiasm level is like turned up to 11. And he's such a comic book historian. I mean, I thought I was, but especially on DC stuff, he brings out little things, little Easter eggs we can throw into the story that, and I think that both of us do our best work together, in that genre, in the superhero genre.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your run on Robin when that came out.
Yeah, that was a lot of
90s,
fun.
I think it was. Yeah, that was great. And I really became a huge fan of Robin, and not just looked at him as a throwaway character that could be replaced. That's where he kind of really anchored into DC, I thought. And
Well,
that
that
they could
probably
be more
comes
of
from
a
the
story.
fact that I thought he was like that too. I thought he was, what do you need Robin for? And then Denny O'Neil explained to me why we needed Robin. It's a wonder he just didn't tell me to go away. But he really wanted me to write that first miniseries. And so he explained why Robin was necessary to the franchise. It made perfect
Well,
sense.
and it's definitely shown in that arc. I think I own most of it. I think I'm hunting down like 2 episodes still as a comic book collector. So, but
There's
because
always a few more to get.
there is, like, throughout my travels, I left my parents' house when I was 18 to join the army. Some stuff got thrown out, some stuff got kept, and I've had to inventory that, and then I spent the last 32 years trying to put some of that stuff back together.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. I never went away to college, so my parents didn't get a chance to throw my comics away. So,
You're lucky.
You
Yes,
did okay without it, I'd say.
yeah.
So is there any like franchise or property that you'd want to work in that you haven't?
Well, Graham Nolan and I would really, our dream job would be to do like a 2-year run on Fantastic Four.
Okay.
That would be amazing.
I used to have Lone Ranger on the list, but I got to write some Lone Ranger, so I got that out of my system.
Okay.
Yeah, generally that's about it. I mean, I'd like to write a graphic novel of the Jetsons. But the Jetsons' future isn't quite what it was in the original TV show. It's a bit more dystopic, and the only one who's kind of clueless as to what's going on is George. He just doesn't understand what's going on around him. He doesn't understand why they have to arm up and why they have to flee and things like that.
Oh man, that would track.
I would read the hell out of that. That actually sounds interesting.
If you made Rosie the robot have like machine guns come out of her arms, I swear.
She'd have a machine gun on one arm, chainsaw on the other, and just, basically take it from 50s sci-fi to like 80s sci-fi. Like Jetsons.
I would love that so much.
It'd be a blast to see that world coming apart, and then George just totally, just doesn't see what's going on. It's totally oblivious to how horrible things are.
What would you do with the kids, the son and daughter?
Well, they'd learn quick because kids learn quick.
Yeah, she was such a like prissy sort of fashionista type that I'm just imagining like accessorizing, and her pistol would be pink because reasons.
Yeah, or her clothes get irradiated, so she can't wear them anymore, and that would just, she'd just go completely the other way.
I'm just saying, I own a pink baseball bat, and it has nothing to do with me being into baseball. It is completely because, can you imagine explaining that to the whoever shows up to pick you up because you tried to break into my house? She beat me up with a pink Louisville Slugger.
Nice.
Saying.
Well, you and my wife would get along so well.
I have a weird sense of humor. Like, I am going to get my my concealed carry this year, and the weapon I'm looking at is Tiffany blue. And everybody's like, why does it have to be pretty? I'm like, can you imagine somebody explaining that they tried to come onto my 2 acres and they got shot with 2 2 slugs from a Tiffany blue 9mm. I'm just saying.
Nice. Well, she also grew up in Nevada, so she's like mafia child. I mean, in theory, the mafia doesn't really exist in Nevada. We know they have nothing to do with Las Vegas, but in an alternate universe.
Nevada. It's Nevada, JR.
Yeah, I can
Oh my
in Nevada
God.
too. I'm sorry, it's Nevada.
It's Nevada.
Anyway, so if you're a fan of dinosaurs, did you ever watch the series Primeval?
Yeah, I like that series. Yeah, I watched that. I watched the one set here in the New World.
Yes.
Yeah, that was cool too.
They at one point they were opening back when Amazon when Amazon did the open worlds where you could license properties more easily, and they kind of had a marketplace for that. That was one of the ones available, but then when they shut that program down, I'm not sure. There are some novels written in that world.
Wow. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
I could see you giving it the treatment because I always thought it wasn't quite dark enough. So
yeah, but wasn't that like a in England it was like a BBC afternoon show. It like showed at like 5 on Saturdays, so I understood what that and I could watch it with the kids.
Yeah, and I like the explanation of the time anomalies that just randomly appear, which would explain all of the cryptids that people are familiar with.
Yeah.
They were just dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And there was the iconic episode, which you could probably relate to, given you did the Pirates of the one, but they actually had a submarine accidentally go through, and it's like sub versus giant, dinosaur whale or whatever that was.
Yeah. The one I remember most is that giant elephant showing up.
Oh yeah,
on the highway. That was such a great scene.
Yeah, I'm just imagining. Was it the we cover that too? Allstate, no, Farmers Insurance. We'll cover that.
Yeah.
Seeing that commercial, like, can you imagine explaining that to your insurance agent? See, there was this giant dinosaur. No, what really happened? Well, really, there was this giant dinosaur.
It's an elephant. It was an extinct elephant, and where is it? Well, it kind of went back to where it came from.
Yeah,
cover that.
I see that, and now they're like, "Oh, we're really close to being able to bring back the woolly mammoth," and I'm like, "Yeah, please don't."
No, I want to see a woolly mammoth. I want to see a woolly mammoth. I mean, because you can bring that back. I mean, that could live in this environment. But they're talking about bringing back a dinosaur. A dinosaur wouldn't last 5 minutes in this environment. Their lungs would give out within 10 minutes.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm just thinking all the heavy machinery we could bring to bear on it.
Yeah.
Just the atmosphere would wreck them. It's a lot different than it was.
The air's not dense enough. It's not oxygen rich enough. It's not humid enough.
See, now you're applying science and shit. You've clearly thought about this.
Yeah. Which things like Primeval and Jurassic Park, I kind of have to forget. A critter this big could not walk around now.
Well, Jurassic Park gets it out because they're not true dinosaurs because they mix them with existing species. Right. So they were all hybrids. They just kind of.
Even so, from a physics standpoint, something that big.
Right. Yeah. There's a reason why nothing that big lives in our world today.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Things can live in the ocean because the ocean hasn't changed. But, up here in the atmosphere, it's just not conducive to big animals like that anymore.
They better not bring back a mosasaur. I'm just telling you that. I'll never get back in the ocean.
They recently found proof of a megalodon off of the coast of Finland.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, why would they have gone extinct? There's no reason why they would have gone entirely extinct.
No, they went deep and then they went north. So basically there was a space station that was taking photos of Earth, and they got a picture right around Finland and Iceland and Greenland and all of that. And right off the coast, they're like, what is that big shadow? And they zoomed in on it, and it was a shark, but it was the size of a bus.
Wow.
And not like a short bus, but like the accordion,
So This was a article in the New York Post in September 2022, and they originally found it with an anomaly in the scanners underwater, which led them to investigate because they found the heat signature that was too big for existing creatures. I did a quick Google search while you were talking. So apparently that's legit. That was actual science, and they were showing whatever the scientists were using to find it.
I mean, they find supposedly extinct critters in the sea all the time. I mean, I remember back in the 70s, they pulled up in nets off of the coast of South Africa coelacanths, which had, by science standards, had been extinct for millions of years.
They had a couple wash ashore in Rhode Island a couple years ago on the beaches that were, I don't remember what they were, just that, we thought these were extinct, and now we've got a freshly dead one. Which, I mean, from a science perspective, they were thrilled because now they can dissect it and look at it and do what they do. So
we live in San Diego County. We used to live 5 minutes from the beach. We moved up into the mountains because things are getting crazy and we want to be left alone. But some strange things have been washing up on shore out here in San Diego. We're seeing things that we've never seen in San Diego. So we have hundreds of anglerfishes, just dead anglerfishes, washing up on shore, and they're known to be deep sea. Giant squids are washing up, and we're finding more and more great white sharks off of the San Diego coast, which they're not usually around us. Our waters are too cold for them.
Right.
And so it's strange, some of the creatures that have been in our waters recently. We've even come across a couple black dolphins.
Wow.
So when you see this kind of stuff on the news, do you ever let that inspire some of the stories you tell?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you just sort of file it. I mean, it's like in a Punisher arc I wrote one time. I'd read about this cove in Mexico where oxygen comes out of the rocks naturally, and sharks will come from all over the Caribbean to hang out in this grotto because the water is so oxygen rich they don't have to move around to breathe. And I use that in a Punisher story. So it's like that kind of thing. You see it and you just sort of file it in the back of your head, like, that's weird. I'm going to remember that.
Is that Punisher Warzone?
Yeah, first arc of Punisher Warzone, the first 6 issues.
Yeah, I remember that.
Tiburon. So, and of course, a whole bunch of gangsters end up falling in the water. Of course.
There was
I remember that cover.
The Mobile Caves. Did you follow that one? The development of that?
No,
It was a cave that was recently land shifted, and it was exposed, and it had been sealed off for almost 5 million years. They're estimating. Now they have round the clock guards. It is, I'm trying to remember where they said it was, but they have round the clock guards because they don't want anyone to pollute it, because they want to obviously be able to study it.
Right.
It's the Mobile Caves. It's in the Black Sea and off the coast of Romania, or near the coast of Romania.
Wow.
But and they're finding all kinds of crazy critters that, I mean, I could just size them up just a little bit with some of these crustaceans, and I've got a monster for any day of the week.
I'm actually shocked he hasn't tasked me to draw a kaiju story with him.
Comics are expensive to produce. I thought it'd be cool to have it just to say that I did it. One of those things, just like at some point I'll write a game module just so I can say I did that too. I've written for game magazines, but
I work cheap, man.
But man, when you tell me what you guys have to pay to produce a comic, when you add all the steps, I'm like, no wonder the business is struggling.
It's not cheap. Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons the business is struggling. That is.
And Chuck will let you know if you follow his social media. He's going to let you know.
Well, when your overhead is so high, you really can't afford to piss off your fans. At a certain point in time, you have to understand that if you don't write for the readers, the watchers, the consumer of your product, you can't really get upset when they go somewhere else. I mean, at a certain point in time, if I'm watching capes and cowls and superheroes, I learned that term from you, by the way, Nick, and suddenly all the good guys are bad and the bad guys are goods and the moral lines aren't there. then you've destroyed what people loved about it. So why would they keep reading?
Yeah. But the thing is, people ask me all the time, well, are comics dead? I'm like, well, just because Marvel and DC are doing poorly doesn't mean comics are dead. Crowdfunding comics, they gain market share. I realize they're not on the chart. They're not charted with all the comic sales, but they are a big part of the market share now. And then, of course, the rest is manga. And people go, oh, manga. Yeah, but it's comics. It is comics.
It is.
People are reading comics. They're reading millions of comics. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Now we got to get in there and get them to read ours.
The manga it's the plots that get them, because it's just the plot, nothing but the plot. It's not any of the political messaging one side or the other. And I say that fully aware that there have been authors on books whose politics I agree with, and when they got too preachy, I put the book down because I didn't want that there either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to read that stuff. I want escapist. I want to get away from that stuff.
Exactly.
Manga, you're right. It's apolitical. It's just about story, and it's also true diversity. I mean, there's every genre you can think of. If you like golf, there's a manga. If you like baseball, there's a dozen mangas. One of my favorite mangas is about fishermen, deep sea and surf casting fishermen. And I don't even fish, but I love this manga. I just read one about
beer on the boat.
Yeah, I just read one about the executioner of Paris during the French Revolution. A manga, beautifully drawn and historically, painstakingly researched. So I mean, there's a manga for everybody.
And that's one of the enjoyable things about that manga is that they go everywhere as far as times, regions, cultures.
Right.
And they do a ton of research on it, and that's what makes them so enjoyable. Because one, I don't want to read a comic and be preached to. That's never a thing I've had a problem with your writing in the, oh my God, 40, 30, almost 40 years of reading your stuff. I mean, I discovered you when with Batman Nightfall, you and Graham Nolan,
Right.
And I've been a fan ever since. Of both. Like I follow you both on social media, all social medias. I love the things that you have to say about the industry when you post. I love the things that Graham has to say about, the industry too. I was never preached to. I was just given a good story that I could just escape into, and then that. And
my job is to reflect the characters. I mean, I'm a lifelong gun owner, but I wrote Batman. He hated guns. So I had to write impassioned, reasoned, convincing scenes where Batman talks about how he doesn't like guns and why he doesn't like guns. Because that's true to the character. It's not about me. It's about Batman.
Yeah, one of the things that you'll see is, one, politics can be important to a story, but it has to be the politics of the world of the story, not your politics forced in.
Right.
But the other part of that is sometimes readers will be like, oh, you wrote this character that thought X, Y, or Z. You must think. And I'm like, no, we're making it all up. That's what the character thought. I've written characters that I fundamentally disagree with and try to explain to some people, like, no, I don't really think that, but they did. It's lost on some people. They just do the surface.
Yeah, I have a recurring character in the later Levon novels, and the guy is just an unreconstructed racist, right? And the first novel I introduced him in, I literally had him on his knees. Levon had a gun to the back of his head, and Levon decides not to kill him. He's killed enough people that night and lets him live. And my proofreader read it and said, "Thank God you let him live. He's so interesting." And I said, "I think that's why I let him live. Even though he's a racist, there's nothing good about this guy. He's such an interesting character." And you've got to look at both sides of everything, I guess.
So is there a chance for a redemption arc for this character?
Well, he does something selfless, like 2 books later, but it still doesn't redeem him. He's still, he's still not a nice guy. But, the world's full of not a nice guys who don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a sucker for.
It doesn't come for everybody. And Levon's never going to kill this guy because this guy basically is responsible for helping Levi save his family.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just a sucker for a good redemption arc, and I think that's something that's sort of fallen out of popularity lately. And I don't understand why, because everybody's made mistakes. So the idea that you can fix it is just, I don't know, it's appealing, I think, on a fundamental level.
No, I think I don't think everybody can be redeemed, but yeah, I mean it's good to see that.
Well, and there was a trope, especially in the superhero genre, where they were making the villain to be relatable to where the audience could be like, you saw it with Sandman in Spider-Man 3. You've seen it with Thanos. There's even T-shirts to say Thanos was right. I'm one of them that owns that shirt. But like you said, not everybody's redeemable, but they can still be an interesting character even though they're not redeemable. And I think that's something that you hit in a lot of the things that you write. You have written characters that don't need redemption, but you still want to track their exploits. You still want to follow them along. You don't want them removed from the story. And it's just a stroke of genius that you're able to balance that.
Well, I mean, even a bad guy has to be somewhat relatable. Characters like Tony Soprano. I mean, you watch The Sopranos, and that guy sets your moral compass spinning, because it's like sometimes he's doing stuff and it's for all the wrong reasons, but poetic justice intercedes, and the person he killed really deserved to die. And then you think, and then he's funny and he's charming, and you start to fall for him, and then he does something absolutely horrible, to some innocent person. And then you're like, oh, okay, and then your moral compass spins back. It corrects itself. I mean, there's the scene I most often point to is in the movie Rear Window. If you've ever seen it, Raymond Burr's the bad guy. He's the murderer that Jimmy Stewart's been watching through the whole film. We never hear his voice. We never really see him clearly. We don't know anything at all about him. But when it's established that he is the killer in this whodunit, he shows up in Jimmy Stewart's apartment. And there's this great scene where he's standing in the foyer and his face is in shadow. And he says, "Why are you doing this to me?" And just for that second, you're like, oh, this poor guy.
For a split second.
It's not working out for him because Jimmy Stewart screwed up his plans. And then he tries to strangle Jimmy Stewart to death, the guy in a wheelchair. And then you go back to hating him. But just for that second, and that really makes the whole movie. It
really does.
Do you have a strong position? I know there's a popular trend, like you mentioned, about making the villain relatable. I do think you want them to understand them so they can properly hate them. But what do you think about where the ambiguity and the grayness of the bad that seems to be popular in the zeitgeist? Are you a fan, or do you like the clear lines?
No. There's evil afoot in the world. There are evil people. We've all met them. The light in their eyes is gone. They're not coming back from wherever the hell they've been, or wherever the hell they are. And there's true, and we need to recognize that. And there's some people you just can't, I mean, it's like I had to write a lot of the Joker, and I don't like the Joker as a character. I like to write him because he's interesting.
I love the Scarecrow. I hate the Joker. I'm with you.
Yeah, I hate him. But I realized I can't make him relatable. So the only thing I could do is make him funny. So that was his only redeeming feature was that he'd be funny. So,
do you have a favorite villain that you've written?
I loved writing the Riddler, even though the Riddler was really hard to write. If you're doing the Riddler right, it's very, very hard to write, which is why I really only wrote him 2 times. In 11 years on Batman, I only wrote him 2 times because I had a bar I had set for a good Riddler story. And
so what makes the Riddler specifically? Is it just his speech cadence where that gives him the name, or is there something more? Is it the puzzles?
His modus is that obviously he uses riddles, and if that were it'd be easy, but it's not, because his modus is he gives you the riddles, and if you answer them one way, they'll take you right to him, to his crime. But if you answer them the wrong way, they'll take you away from his crime and possibly into a lethal trap. So that's why the Riddler is so cool, because when the riddle shows up, it's like, we got to get this answer. We're we're not going to catch him, and 2, we could possibly die. And
you see that a lot in the Arkham games when you deal with the Riddler.
That's probably the only place, other than the 66 television series, I've never seen anybody write a Riddler story with that template.
Yeah, he's hard to do.
A great Riddler story is Die Hard 3. It's such a perfect Riddler story. Because it does what I just said. Leads you
Simon
to
Says.
the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've never played the games. I've heard great things about them. But yeah, if they do the heavy lifting on that stuff, they've got my respect. My mad respect.
It's so frustrating because you think you're beating him as the great, the Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective, and then you make a wrong move, you hit the wrong trophy, you hit the wrong green button, and next thing you know, your world's about to spiral.
Wow. See,
And then he doesn't say anything at first. He just is like, "Oh, you beat me, Dark Knight." And then when your world starts to spiral, that's when his ego kicks in. He's like, "You stupid fool! World's best detective? I don't think so." And he just ridicules you. And it's so frustrating.
They've nailed it because he's a narcissistic a-hole. He's always got to be the smartest guy in the room, even when he isn't. And then at the bottom, how he wins is he cheats. He's got no compunction about cheating. Oh. Yeah, I love it.
They got close on a couple episodes of the animated series.
To
illustrate them, but
even there, as much as I love the animated series and I really appreciate what those guys did, they never wrote a classic Riddler story.
Right. He'd be fun to draw though. As an artist, I would love to draw him, but writing him, no.
You've talked about some of the villains and characters you've written and drawn, or written, I guess, because you didn't do the art, that you've written in other people's universe. What's the favorite one you've created for your own stuff that wasn't in another IP?
Well, I gotta say Bane. Graham and I created Bane mostly because I'm looking. Well, here, let's.
Oh my lord!
Bird toys.
That just scratches the surface on Bane action figures, statues, and all the rest of it. So I gotta love the guy because some years he pays the bills.
It was you and Graham that created him together, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, Denny gave me the assignment to create this villain for Nightfall, and then the first thing I did when I got home was call Graham because I knew he'd be drawing. He was going to be introduced in that special, that 48-page special, and I knew Graham was going to be drawing it, so I called Graham and said, "Here's my ideas." And I just started thinking out loud, and then he was responding. Because Graham's a hell of a writer himself, so he's a great guy to bounce stuff off of. And then he came up with the luchador look, and then we were off to the races. Once he came up with that look, we were flying.
Yeah, his look is very. I don't want to say simple because that sounds insulting because it's not.
It's elegant.
It's minimal.
Yeah,
and it's elegant and it's iconic. It caught my eye right from the bat with Legacy of Bane.
Yeah.
When I first read that, I was like, "Oh my god, who the hell is this luchador that's kicking the crap out of Batman?" I was like, I don't even know. I was like 12, 11 maybe. Right into the comic book store, like, "Hey, you got any more Bane stuff?" And the guy was getting sick of me, who owned the shop. He's like, "Dude, what we have is what we got, bro."
Yeah, I mean,
he's such an iconic character.
Yeah. What I like about that basic look is you can dress it up and dress it down, but he still looks like Bane.
Right?
Looks like Batman.
Put the jacket on him.
A lot of stuff about Batman, but he still looks like Batman.
Right. Yeah, and Batman's definitely gone through some changes. I think some of the favorite ones where you can minimalize Batman's look is with Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Year One, Court of Owls, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think the only guys that probably could have topped that would be you and Nolan. But you definitely brought me back in as being a Batman fan, and I've been one ever since that.
That was a great time period, and I gotta say, I realized it at the time. I realized how lucky I was. I was thrilled to be a part of all of that.
Yeah, you guys definitely had lightning in the bottle, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, initially the editors didn't want to bring Graham on, and I'm like, God, guy's like the biggest Batman fan I've ever met in my life. He's like a Batman scholar. I really would like. I mean, I know a lot about Batman, but I don't know as much as Graham does. So I talked to
him once about Batman, and he was I felt like I should have been taking notes, based on his knowledge base. He's such a
Oh, when he came
fan
on,
of
we had the
the
longest
character.
conversation over whether Batman was Catholic or Protestant. So,
Wait, why was that?
huh?
Why did you go with the religion? I wouldn't even thought to have that discussion.
Just because I just assumed he was Protestant because he was like, old money.
Right. Wasp. Okay.
Family, they were, the Waynes are probably robber barons somewhere back in the past. There weren't any Catholic robber barons. And but Graham convinced me, he's very good at convincing people, that he had to be Catholic because only a Catholic would suffer the guilt that Bruce Wayne suffered that turned him into Batman.
Okay, that logic.
Catholic, I can see what you're talking about.
I was raised Catholic, and I have to agree with Graham on that one.
Oh yeah,
because
you and I are cultural Catholics. Whether you're Catholic anymore or going to mass or anything else, they still got you.
Oh yeah. Well, my two favorite comic characters are Daredevil and Batman, and they're very similar, except for one's broke and one's not. But they still have that same Catholic morality. Daredevil probably more so because he's a practicing Catholic.
So was that
something? And he's a big wuss.
Was that
you're trying to hurt my feelings, Chuck?
Tell us how you really feel. Do you get a lot of hate mail, I'm guessing?
Oh, yeah. Daredevil fans coming after me all the time. But yes, he's a big wuss. I loved writing Marvel Knights, if only because I would have Frank Castle just basically pissing on Daredevil all the time at every opportunity. So.
I appreciate your troll spirit, sir.
As one Daredevil fan, who was my introduction into comics, you will not be getting hate mail from me, sir. I see your point. He is a wuss.
I love the comics, but I just thought it was like, man, you're a lawyer, for God's sakes. When are you ever going to get cynical?
He's like the only honest lawyer ever.
That story where he gets tricked by the guy with the pacemaker, it's like, oh man. Okay,
come on.
Now are you going to grow up now? Not believe people when they tell you stuff.
So many times that he's been dicked over, I don't think he's ever going to grow up.
Well, some of that is the episodic nature where like the characters will reset at the end of every issue, every episode. Yeah. They do it on screen too. So there is no actual character growth. And then they'll do something and then various shows or books will retcon it. So it's like, okay, well, which version of the lore are we following right now? And it can get
Daredevil never does that though. He's the same naive dude after every arc. You think he's going to have some growth. You think he's going to grow up and maybe be a little cynical and stop trusting people a little bit. But every time that happens, it's like it lasts for maybe an issue or two, maybe three. And then he goes right back to being the same naive dipshit that I love so much.
JR touched on something that's a problem with comics is that there's no reset. The characters just go on. And we're talking about the characters like we want them to grow and everything else. It's because, we're adults reading these things. And what they've left behind, and they've skipped 2 generations of comic book readers, is that, every generation of comic book readers, there used to be turnover. And so, Daredevil never had to grow up because he was going to get a whole new bunch of readers in 2 or 3
years. The only growth he ever had as a character was Miller's run with The Man Without Fear, and then they retconned it.
Yeah.
Like you finally made him this awesome character who's learned from his past mistakes and adventures, and then they used hand wave him, and Marvel did him dirty.
Yeah,
not a fan. But I keep falling for it because I'm a fan.
So were there any topics when you were writing the comics in the 90s when you were creating Bane and with Graham that were off limits that they said, hey, you can't do this, or did they give you free reign?
We pretty much had free reign, and we were both, we understood the comics code. We had no problem with that. We weren't trying to push the envelope on any of that stuff. I think we did in a lot of ways, just by making things look more realistic. But we weren't. We understood we were stewards or custodians of Batman, so we weren't going to break the toys. We were going to be handing them off to someone else someday. So we just worked within that template, and we liked working within that template. We already loved the character, loved that world.
But
The only thing that we concentrated on was explaining some of the imponderables about Batman, because we thought there was a lot of ground that had never been covered as far as logistics of Batman. I think we did a lot of that.
So where is the line for you on it's gritty, I like it, and it's too dark and too gritty? Is there a line for you, or do you just
yeah. I mean, somebody told me something. I was harping on Dark Knight Returns in a video, and then someone posted, well, but you were so influenced by Miller. And I'm like, point to me where I was influenced by Frank Miller on Batman. I mean, my Batman was, Denny O'Neil's Batman.
Yeah.
Because I was working for Denny O'Neil, and I had no arguments with Denny O'Neil's Batman. That's the Batman I wanted to do. I mean, my only difference with Denny is I wanted to reference the 1966 show every once in a while for laughs, and he hated that idea. So I would bury those references so he didn't notice them.
Was that because it was so campy with the Batman 66? Obviously, I'm wearing a T-shirt. I know there was a period after that when Denny was writing it and you had Neil Adams drawing it, and they were trying to get to be more serious. Is that something they wanted him to be darker and grittier? They didn't want to have any reference to that campy past, which I thought was funny. I was a huge fan of the Adam West show.
Yeah.
Nick at Night, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Denny's whole reason for getting on Batman was to redeem him, to get him back to his roots, which, he'd been taken away from his roots long before the 66 show. The Batman comics were ludicrous.
Yeah.
And, they had him going to outer space and meeting aliens and traveling through time. And Denny wanted to get away from all of that. And that's why the Joker doesn't appear for quite a while when Denny takes over.
Yeah, I remember that. He had a long absence. They were using some of the more obscure Bat villains.
Yeah, and you had Man-Bat, you had Ra's al Ghul. I mean, they were concentrating on, like closer to the real world mob figures and stuff like that. And
Right.
I remember when they brought Joker back, man, it was a huge event. He did it during the convention season, and they sold a crapper load of comics. Everybody was talking about, the Joker's back. So, but yeah, I mean, his whole thing about Batman, he's very serious about it, very earnest about.
Yeah, he was. And he did a great job.
Yes, yeah, you can't argue with it. I mean, he saved Batman.
He did. And then you came along and broke his back.
Well, he didn't want to do any of that. He was pressured by DC because Death of Superman had been such a big deal, such a profitable thing.
Right.
And so
knowing
DC,
that you're going to bring him back eventually, right?
Yeah, and they're like,
at the time,
you got to do a Batman event like that. And he goes, well, I'm not killing him. And he referred to it as a stunt. And then he took quite a while coming up with a framework for Nightfall, because he said, I don't want this to be a stunt. I don't want it to be a gimmick. I want it to be a story that fits Batman. And at the end of it, will have made Batman better. And I think that's true, because we finally addressed to all the readers who thought they wanted Batman to be more like the Punisher why that's not a good idea. And ultimately that was the lesson, whether the readers realized they learned it or not. That's what we set out to do with it.
It was with that mindset that you made Azrael kind of more Punisher-esque.
Yeah, that was he was created to be a real a-hole that the readers wouldn't.
And he was.
And we thought, well, the readers won't like him, but they'll be compelled to read about it because we're spoon feeding them what they said they wanted, right? But it was so unpopular that sales started to plummet. So we had to end it. He was going to be Batman for like another 6 months. And
was he?
We got to wrap this up. We got to, and then we're like, well, it's too soon to bring Bruce back. We really haven't even started on the story of bringing Bruce
back.
Back.
He had that whole separate journey of trying to fix his back. And so, as a reader at the time, I was like, when's Bruce going to come and kick the crap out of Jean-Paul Valley because he's screwing up the mantle of the Bat, And then I had other questions that I wanted to write you about, but I didn't. It's like, why didn't we use Nightwing? Why didn't he take over?
That's what, that's Dick Grayson comes in to be Batman to fill the gap, and the readers loved it. because they were like, he should have picked him in the first place. And it's like, well, we explained in Nightfall why he didn't pick him, so it all worked out in the end. But, for a while, we had to change plans. We were like, had an emergency summit to sort of bring sales back up.
You had my attention for such a long time with that whole arc.
It's like 2 years. It's like 2 years.
And and this is before Google. This is before the internet. So it's not like you can like, hey, when's the next issue coming out? So you'd go to your LCS every week, like, hey, is the new Batman out yet?
Right.
And then the guy would get mad at me. He's like, dude, I told you last week it's not coming out till late.
Well, the thing is, with Nightfall is the new Batman, the new Catwoman, the new the new showcase, because we were bringing them all in. We were tying everything.
What is
Nightfall? Yes. Nick, not everyone here is hardcore comics.
Your local comic book shop.
Okay,
it is an LCS. It's not the Latter-day Saints or anything like that. It's nothing crazy. It's your local comic book shop. It's an abbreviated term for us nerds that are in the comic love. So anytime you see a post that says, "Hey, I went by my LCS today and they didn't have on my pull list ready," it's like, I get it.
So since you're most known for Batman, do you think the archetype could have worked as well for anybody but Bruce Wayne? So somebody from, I don't know, some inner city kid from Boston could have, or did it have to be the waspy rich kid from, where he was from?
Yeah, I mean, when you see where Batman was drawn from, the influences, and he's part the Shadow, he's part Dracula, he's part Sherlock Holmes. You kind of needed that legacy of old money, and to afford all that stuff, because he doesn't have superpowers. So he's going to need a car and a helicopter and a place to hang out that nobody can find.
And the boat.
Yes. The boat, that's the one we had tough. That's the one Graham and I couldn't figure out until we did a Bane Maxi series. We couldn't figure out how to get him a boat that made sense, because you can follow a boat.
Yeah.
Sometimes
submarine. That might work.
But with a boat, it's tougher to lose pursuit because you're in the water.
Okay. So
like a submersible that he could launch within the cave and come up anywhere in Gotham Harbor.
Yeah.
How much of what you were creating was driven by the incessant need for merchandising, and how much of it was just the story needed it?
Well, we were made aware by DC having a very generous participation program that any characters, gadgets that we created, we would own a piece of. And I'm surprised more people didn't take advantage of that. Graham and I started cranking out stuff. Our only regret was we didn't rename Firefly. We completely rebooted Firefly. And boy, if we'd renamed him, because they did tons of toys. But we created the subway rocket, the Batboat, a bunch of stuff that's been made into toys. Robin's Redbird, Robin's car, stuff like that. I mean, I signed, I think, 250 participation agreements.
Nice.
Characters, gadgets, vehicles.
What would you rename Firefly? I gotta know.
I don't know. Something. Graham fires them off to me all the time. The arsonist. Like,
oh, you don't mean Firefly like the okay. You're talking about a comic book character.
No, there's a firebug in the Batman universe named Firefly.
Yeah, and he's a when he first appeared in the 50s, he was a Hollywood special effects guy, like a pyrotechnics guy. And I kept that aspect, except I made him a pyromaniac. And that used to make DC a little uncomfortable, because I wanted to go with, because I wrote a lot of scenes where the flames around him take the form of women. And they got really uncomfortable with that. And they would tell the artist, don't draw it that way. But we got away with it on one cover. Graham got away with it. So
okay,
so that's their kink, is fire, and I turned him into a really twisted, sick individual.
I could see that going dark for sure. So you've done a lot of the properties that we kind of all Judgment Free Zone that we've all grown up with. Are there any of the iconic like Buck Rogers type properties that are slowly working their way into the public commons that you would love to play with?
Yeah, I'll tackle just about anything if I'm interested in it, if I already know it and I'm already conversant with it. It'd be fun to tackle any of that stuff. I like a challenge, but and I like licensed stuff. I got a Rambo graphic novel coming out soon.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's his first tour in Vietnam. It's like his origin story.
Okay. I always liked Buck Rogers, and I liked what was that? Heinlein's Have Space
Troopers?
No, it's the Space Cadet one.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd love to write a Space Cadet thing. That would be fun.
And some of the original comics for it were kind of Archie cheesy, but I think that story could go pretty dark by modern standards and be really fun to play with.
Yeah, I've played with the Space Cadet kind of story a few times, but yeah, I any of that classic stuff would be fun to dip in on and do some work on. Because like I said, as long as I'm conversant, I don't want to write a character I don't care about.
Right, and you want to respect
there's someone who could write it better than me. So,
while you have heretical views on Firefly, the sci-fi series, I have been known to get hate mail because I said I like the Starship Troopers movie better than the book, because the book read more like Ayn Rand political treatise and not as much an action thriller. And I mean, come on, who didn't love Dizzy if you're a man of a certain age, right?
Yeah. Well, the Starship Troopers movie it's a wonderful thing because it works on two levels. It works as parody and it works as a straight up earnest sci-fi action film.
And that's how I first heard of Heinlein, is I saw that and they're like, did you know there's a book? I'm like, oh, tell me more. And then I read that and I ended up with Space Cadet and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And, we were off to the races, and Heinlein was known for like playing with all kinds of ideas of what it means to be family and society and what culture looks like with all these alternate pairings. I mean, right. He even made them blush a little bit in the 50s when he wrote that incest story because of cloning and stuff, which is much like time travel. Cloning gets you into a lot of really weird genetic questions. I'm like, are they really family because they've got the same DNA, but they weren't raised together? And
right.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah, he did. He asked a lot of great questions in the story.
Yeah. So, well, we've definitely we were promised we would keep these at about an hour, and we broke that by 30 something minutes. But there's
because of Chuck Dixon.
There's definitely more room. So I hope you'd be willing to come back. I had so much fun just listening. I was not a comic book. Like, I didn't even get into, like, I guess Bazooka Joe on my bubble gum at the baseball field. I learned some important driving lessons there. They ask him in his driver's ed class what to do if his brakes fail on the interstate. And the answer is, of course, let off the gas and pull over. And his answer was hit something cheap. And I'm like, dude, freaking knew the assignment and he nailed it. Because, I mean, BMW or Hoopty. I'm hitting the Hoopty. I'm sorry.
Definitely hitting the Hoopty.
Right.
That's gonna be the next banner I make, JR. Definitely
so,
hitting the Hoopty.
I read so fast that comics were just the price to entry was too expensive. I'm like, the cost of a magazine that I'm going to finish in under 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So I read novels, but like the stories as Nick tells them, I'm like, if that was a book, I would totally be all over that.
You're welcome, JR.
Have you gotten part of that? And this is my last question, and Nick might have one more, but there's the movement in some of the indie spheres where they're taking those capes and cowl superhero stories and they're novelizing them. Maybe not the official like Batman, DC, Marvel, all that, but they're making their own and creating these superhero worlds. Have you checked any of that out?
I haven't checked any of it out. It doesn't interest me all that much because to me they belong in the comic books.
Fair.
I played around with a superhero novel. It was basically a private detective novel about a private detective. He gets hired by Lois Lane to find out what Superman's all about.
Okay.
She can't figure out what's the deal with Superman. So,
she needed to hire Dick Tracy.
There you go. but yeah, I played around because it was funny, and it was kind of funny to write, Chandler-esque type dialogue. That tough guy.
That's amazing.
So I might get back to it.
Well, hopefully you'll agree to come back because this was a lot of fun, and I'm sure.
Absolutely, this is a lot of fun.
But Nick, did you have any more for the road before we let him go?
No, because we'll be on here for another 2 hours, man. So we got to book another interview.
Yeah, well, we'll
Because
definitely have
this-
to do this again. I had a lot of fun. Where would you recommend sending people on the internet if they wanted to find your stuff?
It's Amazon.
That's good. That's good. I will link to all the things because we tracked you down. We stalked you as you do, and we've got all that in the show notes. And if I would suggest his website, chuckdixon.net, is the easiest place to find him because he's one of the helpful creators who links to all his other places. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, you go poor trying to buy everything you've ever written.
No, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't live long enough to read it all at this point. But yeah, I've got my weekly show, Ask Chuck Dixon, on YouTube.
This is just page 1, by the way.
See, now I'm going to have to go listen to your weekly show just to hear the kinds of nonsense you're talking about because I'm intrigued.
Oh yeah, people ask the craziest questions. So,
is there anything that's like shocked you that people have asked?
Yeah, just stuff like how tall are you? I mean, it's like I never really thought about that. But 6'3", by the way.
And then
I tell a lot of stories about when I used to work at an ABC affiliate in Philadelphia, and people keep asking me questions about that. To tell more stories about that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Next time.
All right. So this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right products, and they really do make a big difference. If nothing else, sometimes you just need to read somebody's comment that says they love the crap out of whatever you bled all over the page for. And it does help. I mean, some of the 1-star reviews have sold me books. My favorite to this day was someone who reviewed my first novel and said it's like a 12-year-old with ADHD wrote gun porn. And I'm like, dude, like, can I buy that for ad copy? This is glorious.
Boom.
Right? Like some of the reviews, obviously we prefer you review the stuff you like with good reviews, but be descriptive is what I'm saying. Be descriptive. All right.
Well, Chuck, I don't know if you remember, but you gave me a review for my book, Mad Copy. Yeah, for the Crimson Guardians.
Oh, okay.
And you said there would be hell to pay if you missed out on this book, and I used that in the Kickstarter.
Nice.
Cool.
I just showed you the cover, and you're like, oh, he's a guy dressed like a cardinal fighting demons. All right, I got it.
Yeah. Wow.
You delivered that. I was like, yeah, I'm using that.
I'm a
nice.
photo now.
All right. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the email, Blasters and Blades podcast @gmail.com. For professional purposes only, we have our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. And most importantly, we link to Madam Stabby Stab's Instagram, Twitter, and email, where you can send all the hate mail. She's ready to make you cry. And she's been really disappointed that nobody's actually reached out and tried to, poke the bear. So Nick is very appreciative, though, that she hasn't poked him as a result. So we'll take the wins where we can get them. You can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters tech and tech blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. These episodes aren't free to produce, and we appreciate your patronage. Or you can support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment sections for the podcast, and I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until they can see the comics in front of their faces, because the comics will be floating around him like he's underwater or something. Man, I really should write these down before I say them, because that doesn't make any sense. But, I've had plenty of our own coffee brand coffee, so I'm a little bit jittery right now, and we're just going to blame it on that. So, Stabby, before we let you go, what are you drinking right now?
Hold on, I got
Right now, or in my coffee pot?
In your coffee pot. Obviously, we're talking coffee right now.
Oh, well, in that case, I'm still drinking the Argentina Roaster's Choice. Nick says I have to finish that one before I can order more.
How rude.
Yeah, so it's actually it's a really good dark roast. I just have to grind up my own beans. So I like prepping the coffee at like 2:00 in the morning and making it everybody's problem.
So I bought it for my mom, and she couldn't have as much of it because her diabetes, so she wasn't able to have as much of the hot chocolate. So I've been making the hot chocolate and turning it into a mocha because I borrowed my neighbor's espresso machine while he was out of town and adding espresso shots to their hot chocolate. It's freaking delicious. Take that, Starbucks. And we link to that in the show notes. Go ahead.
I stopped at Starbucks today because we went down the mountain to go grab some groceries, and I stopped at Starbucks because we all know I am a Starbucks cup-aholic. And
you do have a problem.
I do. I got my new Starbucks cup. It looks like the ocean waves.
It's the lavender line. They've been advertising the heck out of it.
Isn't it so pretty?
I mean, it's a white cup to me, but I'm colorblind, remember?
Yes. Well, the barista goes, "Do you want anything else or just the cup?" I'm like, "Just the cup. I like your guys' cups more than your coffee." She goes, "Yeah." She looks me dead in the eye and goes, "Yeah, and the cups are not as bad for your health either."
No, you can make the stuff a lot healthier if you make it at home. So yeah, but
I can drink that acidic swill. Oh my god.
I just can't afford it. I mean, I'll go all basic white girl for a pumpkin spice latte in the fall, but other than that, like I tend to make it myself. But I paid for college.
I'll teach you how to make the pumpkin spice latte at home.
Nice,
it's way better.
I paid for grad school working as a barista. I went to grad school in your neck of the woods, up in the Philadelphia area.
Wow.
So I went to Villanova. So
okay, yeah, I know Villanova. I'm from the Philadelphia area.
Yeah. So, well, Nick, when we were going through the bio in the beginning, so we could, tailor any questions, I'm like, oh, you probably know that region. But
sure do.
I learned how to interpret all the foreign writing that is known as the mass transit because I grew up in the South. We had none of that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? It's like they're talking colors and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. But anyway, all right. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my lovely co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we are out. Thank you for coming by, Chuck. This was a lot of fun.
I'll be back.